Initiating C.O.R.V.U.S file transmission sequence.
Hey there, everyone. This is your narrator and producer of Redwing, JV, Hampton Van Sant. It's my name. And I'm, okay, this episode is going to be a little bit different than what you've heard in the past few, C.O.R.V.U.S files and other episodes, and it's just sort of a little behind the scenes thing, and, I guess rather than belabor the point, I'll just get right into it, but I want to sort of preface this with a little bit of a warning. If you are a person who has not as of yet caught up with this point in the show, then I would advise doing that prior to this episode. I just think that I don't want to spoil any of the story for you, but I also want to right now talk in a authentic manner to the point at which you are in the story. So, yeah, this is going to be mostly spoiler free, but there are certain aspects of the story and the city and everything that you may want to hear, but you also might not want to. So, use caution. And if you do hear a spoiler, don't worry, because honestly, you're going to want to listen to the story anyway, because I haven't told you everything. There you go. Okay, so I'll start with this. So about a week ago today, actually it was a week ago today, I was listening to a lovely podcast that if you have not checked it out, I highly recommend. The podcast is called Your Fave is Problematic. And the reason I recommend that show as much as I do is because it encourages meaningful thought about the things that you consume and about the things that you claim to value and the things that you actually value and the things that you're giving your money to and things like that. I strongly urge people to consider those things all of the time. You should consider it just always. It's a general good practice, I think. Anyway, so, right. The episode that they just released last week was about J.K. Rowling. Now, J.K. Rowling, for those of you who might not know, I guess, is the author of Harry Potter and the person responsible for creating that entire universe, and for a lot of us, building a world for us that we got to live in basically as kids, and it was really quite delightful, for a lot of us. I recommend listening to their full conversation. I think it is very important to listen to, but I also really want to bring up something that it brought up for me as a writer, which is the idea of appropriating things. Now, cultural appropriation is a thing that is a constant thing that I'm sort of wary of because I see it constantly. As a person of color, it happens very consistently. Even as a queer person, it's something that I see all the time. Honestly, half of the slang that winds up getting used nowadays came from RuPaul's Drag Race. Excuse me, which in turn came from other things, but even so, it still came from somewhere, and I guess because it's seen as just something that's a happy accepted thing now and not weird anymore for anyone to use, then I don't know necessarily that I would call it appropriation so much as appreciation in terms of gay slang. Whatever, that's actually not even what I was talking about. What they were talking about, specifically in the episode, is J.K. Rowling's use of Native American culture in creating the Ilvermorny houses. So Ilvermorny, which, fun fact for all of you, I live about 45 minutes away from where Ilvermorny is supposed to be. That mountain is literally a thing that if I went outside right now, I could point you in the exact direction that it is and give you exact directions to where it is. I've lived in this area my whole life. It is a beautiful area, and I do encourage people to visit. Even if you don't find Ilvermorny, you should definitely come out here and check it out, because it is very pretty. Okay. The houses for the American School of Wizardry, Ilvermorny, are the Horned Serpent, the Thunderbird. Oh dear, what was the other one? The Puckwudgie, and oh god, I don't know why I can't remember the fourth one right now, but damn it, I can't remember the fourth one. I'm so sorry, other Harry Potter fans. I cannot remember that one right now. I'll get back to that at some point, but I myself am a Horned Serpent, or would have been in the Horned Serpent house, apparently. Now, the reason I'm bringing that up is that Native American culture in the United States, and indeed all of North America and South America and Central America, has been not great. There's been a lot of genocide, just plain and simple. There has been a lot of genocide, and there's been a lot of cultural erasure, and honestly a lot of demeaning things that have happened because of people not understanding and being ignorant and not wanting to hear the stories of Native American people. And furthermore, there is this sort of thing where Native American culture is something that is just sort of that, like, in the consciousness of Americans who are not Native American, that gets blended all together. Like, sure, we know that there are different tribes and whatnot, but we sort of seem to think of them all as a giant monolith, which is not correct or accurate at all. Just at all. Like, it's not. There are different literal nations, like, of Native American people, and it's phenomenal. Like, I think Native American culture is one of the coolest things ever, and it is one of the most interesting, coolest things ever. And if it were not, if it wouldn't be, like, were it not for the fact that, like, diving into something like that would be invasive of that culture for me to do, like, I'm not going to go and ingrain myself in that culture to learn about it that way, like, if I have not been invited to do so. Is the main thing. Like, I'm not going to, from the outside, be like, oh my god, the way you live is so fascinating, oh my god, because that's rude. And I don't want to do that. So, like, I don't want to be rude and disrespectful to a culture that has had a long history of being subjugated in this country. So I don't want to contribute to that. I'm bringing this up because in the last chapter of this, which was, the last episode, I guess, was episode 7, and I sort of mentioned a brief piece of history of New York City. Now, I guess to just sort of generally summarize it, basically, there is a powerful force in the soil of New York City that exists because of what is a common trope, which is sort of the Native American burial ground. That's a sort of common trope that's used in a lot of horror media and things like that. Basically, as it sort of sits, it would sort of connote, like, oh, this is a place of, like, weird magical energy. basically, because a bunch of Native American people were buried here, I guess is the logic there. And the backstory for New York City is very similar. Specifically, it is located, well, actually, I won't tell you where it's specifically located. You will find that out in a couple episodes, but that is sort of a trope that I used. I didn't really intend to use it in that very tropey way. I honestly actually wasn't thinking about it. I was trying to think of what would create a source of magical energy, because a source of magical energy would require some amount of sacrifice, or in my mind it was an amount of sacrifice and an amount of bloodshed. And my intention was not to appropriate the history of Native Americans, but to acknowledge the reality of the fact that, as many of you know, New York City is located basically where in our universe Boston is. So when Boston was being, the alternative history here a little bit is that when Boston would have been being settled, there is instead a great battle between the Native American tribes and the European tribes that came, and ultimately everybody died. Ultimately everybody lost and everybody died. It was a almost complete genocide of a people in an area. And when the people from Arklow, aka like Thomas Wade and people of that nature, arrived at the area that would become New York City, because they were from a place of magic, they could feel the magic that was in the soil. They could feel the sacrifice and energy that was in the soil. Because of the mass genocide that was perpetrated, and because of the just sheer amount of death and destruction that happened in that area, that created a place of intense power and intense magic that could have a lot of consequences in terms of how the universe goes, I guess you could say. Now, this is a thing that happened. This is a thing that happened in our country, in the state that I live in. And it's a history that I honestly didn't learn about until I was actually out of high school. I didn't learn it until I was in college, because we don't talk about it. We don't talk about it nearly enough, considering the awful things that this country did to the people who were already here. It's horrendous. And I do not in any way want to make light of that tragedy by using it as a source of, by using it in a way that would be inappropriate. So what I'm basically trying to say right now is that I want to sincerely apologize to any and all Native American people for whom hearing that the death of a culture and the death of a people that they, not necessarily a tribe they belong to, but a sort of cultural group that they may have belonged to. I want to apologize to anyone who that may be the case for, that I use that as a piece of this story. I would, if I could right now, I would entirely change that part of it, because I don't, like I said, I don't want to be problematic about it. And I don't want to take something that is from such a rich culture and pervert it in a way that isn't, and pervert it in a way that is non-consensual, because that's unacceptable and unacceptable behavior. At this current moment in the story, I don't really know how to change it, but I welcome any suggestions. If you, I don't really particularly know how to change it in a way that would be helpful for this story, or in a way that would be helpful going forward. Even just as an example, even if I can somehow be an example to if I can somehow be an example for how a writer, when they're considering writing a story that may, and they just sort of rely on like, oh, well, Native American Burial Ground, Soror, like, someone who I would like to serve an example for someone who maybe in that moment could go for something else that could be equally as plausible. So if anyone has any ideas on what that could be, I would very much like to hear what that is, and if I'm able to do a rewrite, I will credit you, and I promise. I will do my best moving forward to focus on inclusion, because I do want to clarify that's another thing that I've been trying to do. I also wanted to briefly talk about the casting of people. Now, I love everybody on this cast. Everybody has been super amazing and so supportive and so helpful, and I love each and every one of them. I also would like to address a couple things. Now, one of the purposes of creating Redwing as a universe, as a story, is to allow for partially, literally the idea came from, when am I ever going to get a chance to play a superhero? Like, I know what my body type is like, I know all of these things. I am not the type of person who would ever feasibly get the chance to actually play a superhero. So I wanted to create that opportunity for myself. And thus Redwing was born. However, I also, oh dear, where's I going with that? Oh, right. So because of that, I wanted to draw on things that I knew. I wanted to draw on cultures that I feel particularly like connected to, which is why Jordan has the genetic makeup that he does, which is largely West African, and a little bit of Irish, because that is literally exactly what my genetic situation, sure. That's what my genetic makeup is. I'm 15% Irish, for those of you who may not have heard or seen on my Twitter timeline. And 83% West African. And I am also, by the way, 1% Native American, but I'm not going to say that in a way that sort of like connects me to being Native American, because I wasn't raised in that culture. And also, to be completely frank, knowing that one is Native American or Indigenous American, first and foremost, I don't, like, in doing the genetic test, that didn't tell me where, that didn't tell me what tribe, it didn't really tell me much of anything other than that's a part of my genetic makeup. I personally have the theory that it has more to do with the time that my family spent on the Caribbean islands, which also do count as part of the as part of the Americas in terms of continental things. So I personally think it has a lot to do with my family's time spent there, but, you know, I could be wrong. It could have been from when we got up here. But given that it's 1%, it would make more sense if it had to do with the time that my family spent in either Trinidad or Haiti, or Jamaica, depending, but probably Haiti, I think. Haiti seems to be the place that makes the most sense to me. Anyway, so, oh, and also a little bit Southeast Asian? Wait. Yes, Southeast Asian, or maybe it was just South Asian. I'm not quite certain. I'm pretty sure it's Southeast Asian. It's in the Philippines region, which I'm pretty sure is Southeast. In any case, that's my genetic makeup. That's sort of what I was basing Jordan on in terms of a character. But I wanted to also make sure that the voice actors that I chose reflected the diversity that I was aiming for. diversity and representation is important to me. Always has been, and always will be. Now, that being said, I want to acknowledge the moments where a person from one culture is one culture and one heritage is being played by someone from a completely different heritage. Like, okay, an example of this would be the voice of Terrance Wade, who is voiced by the voice of Terrance Wade, who is voiced by my good friend Simon Weeks. Simon, I personally think did a phenomenal job. However, I will acknowledge the fact that Terrance is a black man at various different ages during the time of, during these stages of recording. So that is due primarily to me wanting to cast my friends more than... And I will acknowledge that this is because I wanted to cast my friends, and also because this is a project that is based on volunteers. I should actually also add that all of these people have volunteered to be these actors. This is a project that I am making with with really minimal budget. Like, any art and any music has come directly from my pocket. I am not made of infinite amounts of money, unlike Jordan. So I was not able to pay the actor. So I asked people if they would be willing to volunteer their voices and times, and these lovely people agreed. And I am forever appreciative of the fact that they agreed. And this does lead to some instances where, for example, I am not Southern, but there is a new character. Spoilers, you can skip ahead about 15 seconds if you don't know this, but Blackbird is Jordan's twin brother, Jeremy, and I am not from the South, so voicing him the way that I was, I hope that accent wasn't offensive to anybody. I am working on trying to improve my accents. I'm taking classes for that, literally, to make myself a better voice actor. So I hope that didn't offend anyone either. But if it did, then I do sincerely apologize. And I am hiring, there are going to be people from the South who are going to be in the next season. I'm super excited. I did ask Steven, from Is This Adulting if he would voice a character who I think everybody is going to love, and he will be in next season, so that is going to be pretty great. But yeah, and then in terms of other cultural things, basically accent choices and things that aren't necessarily, that may seem a little strange to some people, Christine's accent as Scarlett might seem a little bit odd, but I don't want to give away Scarlett's backstory, but realistically I can tell you that Scarlett is not from America. She was born in Ireland and lived in England for a good chunk of her life, and then moved to America around age 20, I think 20. So the accent is a little bit of a mixed bag. For next season, I'm going to simplify it a little bit, and we're going to stick with one accent in particular, as opposed to a blend of them. I just think that will be better and a little more authentic, and and it'll feel nicer. It'll have a nice feel to it. So we're going to do that for next season. And let's see here. What else? Oh, and I will acknowledge that Brittany, who is the voice of both Malia Redfield Wade and a very new character who's one of my favorite characters, Marilyn Lahiri. Brittany, to my knowledge, is not does not have Indian heritage, does not have South Asian heritage, South South Asian / Indian heritage. And Marilyn is half from, like, that's half of her heritage. So I do want to address the fact that, like, that's not a thing that I didn't think about that, and I apologize for not really thinking about that in terms of casting. I wanted to cast Brittany in this role because Brittany is one of my best friends, and I knew that she would be great at it, and I think she does a wonderful job, and I know that she's some of y'all's favorite because she is great. But I also want to acknowledge the fact that Brittany is not a trans woman, and she is playing a person who is a trans woman. This one is a little more serious to me. I did want to cast a trans woman, and I did think about it, and I did debate about this for a really long time. As a person who is genderqueer, this is an important thing for me, to make sure that trans representation is included in this show. Which is why, like, that's also partially why Kit is genderqueer, though I will say the other reason Kit is genderqueer is because of a fun discussion I had with people about the plural they and the singular they, in a literary sense, which is that using the singular they is what I was doing in the story, but if you look at it as the plural they, Kit then becomes an analog for what the public is thinking. And that is that's a lot of what Kit's role is in terms of the story and public perception. Kit is how the general population sees the world and sees their city. Kit is one of my favorite characters. I love Kit. And I love the person playing Kit. So, yeah, I think that, I hope that people enjoy that. But I do want to acknowledge that I didn't use a trans woman's voice wherein I probably could have. I do think that Brittany is doing an amazing job, and that Marilyn is going to be in all 3 of the seasons, and I'm going to cast her in all 3 of the seasons. There will, however, be other trans people that will be added to the cast and who will be included in the story because of course, because it just makes sense, because they are a part of the community, so they will be part of the story. Yeah, so in summation, I am apologizing for anything that I've done that may have seemed like co-opting Native American culture. I apologize for that. Oh, actually, no, I won't mention that yet. That will come up in episode 8, so there will be an additional little tiny slight possible apology. Or actually, you know what? Okay, here's what I will say. This weekend's episode, which is going to be episode 8, is going to involve a culture that it may on the surface seem like I don't know a whole lot about, but I want you to know that that is a culture that I know a lot about, and the way in which the words that I have used there, I want to clarify that I am aware that, you know what, I will just explain it. I will release a separate, little mini recording right after that episode airs, which will hopefully, by the way, be this Saturday. It might be late in the day Saturday because I have a lot of work to do for this entire week. This week is a deadline at my day job that is really a little bit difficult. Actually, at this current moment as I'm recording this, I'm supposed to be working on it, but yikes, sorry. I wanted to make sure that I got this out to you guys. I basically... Oh, and also I would like to clarify as well that, in terms of casting gay people as, queer people as queer people, I've I don't want to like reveal necessarily all of my cast sexuality because that doesn't seem to be important, or not, correction, that doesn't seem to be my place to do. I will let each actor individually say what their identity is. I will speak to a conversation that I had with Amanda, who basically said that who, if I recall correctly, in a quote that I may have audio of, said, "I am sorry that I am not a super genius lesbian." But I personally think that Amanda is wonderful, even if she is not a super genius lesbian. She's still one of my favorite people, and Amanda is Joanna. Joanna being a super genius lesbian with the power of the internet. I will say, here's what I will say for some of the people that I do know are out. I do know that Dane, who plays Tim, as well as Dane is the voice of Tim as well as the voice of Alejandro, which is interesting casting their choice on my part, but thank you, Dane, for stepping up and taking over the role of Tim. If you want to know a little bit more about the story behind that and the story behind why it took me so long to cast Tim, I might tell you guys, but suffice it to say it is actually not great. It's not pretty. But I will tell it to you guys if you want to hear it. Let me know. I will definitely share. Let's see here. Dane is gay, like myself. He is my gay best friend. He is the best friend. He is my best friend in the entire world. That is what I will say. Dane is my best gay friend in the entire world. I trust him so much, and I love working with him, and he is wonderful. He, I guess, is the only person I will speak for at this moment in terms of like a person being queer, because I feel very confident in knowing what his identity is, given the conversations that we have had. Anyway, just fun times. Y'all should listen to some of these conversations. They're quite delightful. This upcoming episode 8, I want to give a special shout out to Aaron from the Love Luck podcast, because Aaron is amazing. Aaron is absolutely amazing for the help that Aaron was very helpful for the help that he gave me in, like, I got really sick with that like weird flu that like started as a fever, turned into a cold, then turned into a bronchial infection, then turned into pneumonia. So during that time period, there was a bunch of days where actually something happened to my ears and I couldn't hear anything. It was really scary. So, so because of that, because of all of that, I feel very much... Because of that, I feel very much, I'm so deeply indebted to Aaron for helping me edit the audio for the narrator for last episode, erasing my flubs and making my editing process so much easier this last week. It was a weird decision a little bit for me to decide that I was going to make Redwing weekly this week, or like until the end of the show. But I'm doing that because I want you guys to hear it each week. And it's really, I love making it, and weirdly I have a little bit of time after this week is over to like make it happen, so I want to do that. But anyway, this has actually gone on for way longer than it was supposed to, for like just a random little catch-up episode, but whatever. Basically, I just want to say thank you to Aaron for stepping in and helping me in a moment where I really, really, truly needed it, because there was literally no way that I could actually do it myself. So thank you so very, very much. And everyone go check out the Love Luck podcast if you have not done so already. It is phenomenal and one of my absolute all-time favorites. Okay, so I hope that I have managed to do a decent apology to Native American folks, and I hope that it is understood that none of what I have done up to this point was done with any sort of malice or any sort of wanting to change the narrative of Native American people, because it's not my place to do that. But I welcome any criticism at any point in time. Please tell me if there's something about the show that you have a problem with, especially if it is something like this, because any issues surrounding representation and diversity, I am entirely here to fix in any sort of way that I can. If there is a group that I have not represented at this point that you really want to be represented in this story in a positive way, call me and we'll figure it out, because I want to include as many different voices in this story as I can, because from the time that I lived in Boston, what I can say about Boston, Jesus, what is that? But anyway, what I can say about Boston from the time that I lived there is that Boston is a very diverse city. And New York City is just the same. It is very diverse. It is very exciting. It is very wonderful. And I want to include as much of that diversity as I possibly can. There's some really fun characters coming next season. I'm so excited to bring them to you. I really can't wait. It's going to be so great. Oh, it's going to be wonderful. I'm so excited. I'm really getting very hype about writing this next season. There is going to be an episode wherein I get to do a really fun crossover with Jessa Nicholson-Getz and her podcast Getting Off, as well as a couple other shows that are going to be contributing in a really interesting way, and I really think that you guys are going to love it. Anyway, I have to go. I have to go back to work, but I love you guys so very much. Thank you so much for listening, and please, 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 please rate, review, and subscribe, and let me know if there's anything that you want to hear from me. If you have any questions about anything, also totally shares fan theories with me. I love those. Oh my God. So I did get one last little story. I did get to meet Jordan Cobb. Shout out to Jordan. I love you, girl. Jordan Cobb is the writer and creator of and a voice actor in the fantastic Here Be Dragons audio drama, which is literally one of my absolute favorites. I got to meet her on my birthday in New York City, and it was so great. And we had just a really fun conversation about fan theories that she's had over the course of her listening experience to Redwing, and I love it, and I'm so excited, and I really love hearing those fan theories. And also, here's another thing about Redwing. If you have any interest in cosplaying any of the characters, I, first of all, will love you forever. Literally forever. I will love you for all time. That is my dream come true, is to have someone do a cosplay of Redwing. I would love that. But if you want to do that, or if you're going to be at a convention and you do cosplay Redwing, take photos, let me know, and I will definitely send you a whole lot of prizes. I will shell out a lot of money to people who do that. The first person who cosplays as any of the characters on Redwing, first of all, and also if you want to know what they look like, definitely hit me up, and I will give you character art that is not as of yet released for the characters. But yeah, if you want to cosplay as someone from Redwing, let me know, and we will, I will love you forever. I will send you prizes and all of those things. Anyway, that'll do it for me. This is JV Hampton Van Sant, aka Redwing, signing off for the day. End C.O.R.V.U.S file here. Fly high, heroes.
C.O.R.V.U.S file transmission completed successfully. Initiating rest mode. Fly high, heroes.